afternoon. You're listening to Cannabis Corner on WNHHLP 103.5 FM, broadcasting live from downtown New Haven. We are streaming live on TuneIn Radio and NewHavenIndependent.org. We're also streaming live video on Facebook and YouTube. Just go to your Facebook page and look us up, or hit see first to see and hear all the great programs we have here on WNHHLP. And just a reminder, Cannabis Corner is also streaming live on the Green Haven Media Facebook and YouTube page and procannabismedia.com. Good afternoon. It is Monday, September the 23rd, the fall equinox 2024. I'm your host, Joe LaChance. Welcome to Cannabis Corner, Joe the Weed Guy. And I am joined by, of course, the inimitable Uncle Lou Vega. How are you today?
How's it going, good brother? I'm doing very, very well today. I'm sitting here at the desk doing a couple things. Actually, very excited about everything that's going on.
Are you in your grow room?
I'm gonna say I'm digging the background. It's like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
That's a very, very close up view.
I love it.
Yeah, very close up. I am rolling a blunt and going through resumes. So,
that could be a good sign, though. If you're going through resumes, that must mean you are getting close.
Let's not. We don't. There's always something that pops up anytime I say.
Yeah, no jinx, no jinx.
So,
things are just happening.
Yes.
Things are happening. So there's still time for everybody as we move forward. We will have another job fair, October 16th. I'll get all that information out by the end of the week. But things are moving forward, and we're very excited about everything. So, that's about it. How was your weekend, Joe?
My weekend was good. I attended Friday night. I went to the Burn and Learn Festival, the Food and Arts Festival, and I had a really good time. Hannah's Field played. I always love hearing them. She's got a beautiful voice, Hannah.
That's awesome.
And they had a giant glass blowing. They had 6 glass blowers there, and we did a glass blowing contest.
That's always nice. You know what's even nicer? Getting fresh glass from people. I recently got I recently got some, and it's not just smoking glass or usable glass. I got a whole handful of marbles from my good friend Max Dunkel, who Max Dunk's glass, and he's been a glass blower for a long time out of New Haven. He's second generation glass blower, but he does functional pieces, and his father did ornamental pieces, and cups and Christmas decorations and beakers and all type of cool shit like that. And I'm really excited. He gave me a whole bunch of marbles because I like marbles, and it's a lost art lost collection that people don't really do as much. And I really like having these things. And
I played them.
He did a couple of cool color combinations, and I was real happy to get these whole handful of marbles, and got a nice little pottery jar that I had another friend gave me. I like custom art pieces. It's creativity from friends in different mediums. So it's really cool.
Well, that's what I kind of realized. I was seated near the glass blowers, so I got a good view. And I was just during the day, I mean, they're all sitting there for about 6 hours, just blowing glass all day in front of those flames. Them glasses. And I'm like, wow, that is hard work. And those guys are really artists. They're artisans. And you bring up a good point. It's not just pipes. I mean, these guys could make anything out of glass. You said beakers. You could make Christmas ornaments. You could make marbles. You can make all kinds of things out of glass. And it's a real art. And I really grew, especially after that event, I really grew to appreciate what those guys do and what kind of a skill it really, really is. It's not for the faint of heart, I couldn't do it. It's not something I would do, but
I cannot do it either.
Right. So I really grew to appreciate those guys. So that was one good thing that came out of that, but I had a really good time. Fortunately, I missed the Freedom Rally on Saturday because after that night, I had to recover, But again, as you and I were talking, Lou, we've been to a lot of them.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of them. And I think it's time for the younger generation to go enjoy and experience that. And I noticed a lot of our friends were on the speaker stage. So that was good to them. And a shout out to all those who did make it up there, because it is a very important event and it's like a milestone in the year. And so I hope everybody who went up to the Freedom Rally had a great time. And shout out to those guys again. We had them on last week for putting it on. And so I am sorry I missed it, but I know it was a great time. So that was my weekend. Yesterday I just rest. It's Sunday, day of rest.
That's right.
So Kristen,
Yes, sir.
how are you doing over there in the corner? Well, there she is in the corner, our lovely co-host, Kristen Souza. What is happening in your world and around the state?
In my world, I had a very uneventful weekend. Saturday and Sunday were super quiet, but that's okay. I feel like I say this a lot. I'm definitely like a homebody. So when the weekend rolls around and you stop having like work obligations and stuff, I just hunker down. I really do need to venture out a little more. But yeah, no, it was pretty chill. So I like hung out and back to school stuff with B. She had a million forms and needed a new pair of pants. So
Okay.
I parented it
At
up.
home, a homebody weekend. That's always good.
Homebody weekend. She's 11. She's in 6th grade. She's starting to get her sense of style. And apparently, pants that are not really baggy are just wholly unacceptable. So, regular fitted pants are just not cutting it. She wants like Jenkos, which I love.
Oh my, that style's coming back, huh? That was from
Yeah.
the 90s, right?
I was like, yeah, oh yeah,
The
bringing it
Jenko
back.
pants.
What did she call me? A geriatric millennial. I don't know if I'm flattered or insulted, but
Then you're
geriatric
really
was
Gen
not my
X, though.
favorite.
Tell her the truth.
I'm right in the middle. I don't latch on to either one, if I'm being honest. I'm a Zennial, Joe.
I am universalist.
That's right. I'm
no
a Zennial
generation.
as well. I like elder millennial, Zennial. I'll even take the geriatric millennial. I got a couple new gray hairs coming out of the side here, and I was like, you know what? I'm embracing them.
I was saying it's time to embrace it. It is what it is.
Please, you guys.
Oh, Joe,
you better learn to embrace it.
Embrace it, bro. And then
I just had a birthday. I'm feeling some kind of way.
Listen, we still enjoy all of it. Joe's still a hippie at heart.
I am a hippie at heart.
You're definitely a Zennial. I'm feeding into the dad life of the dad rock is my thing. I still wear a mohawk. You know what I mean?
Dad rock.
I'm covered in tattoos. I'm like the epitome of what old school grunge used to be back in the late
90s.
But
yes.
All right, it's a little bit of a female reference, but I saw some meme that was like, the Golden Girls. When you look at the ages of what those women were, point in time, they were in their 40s, man. Like, I'm not Blanche, okay? Anyway.
So what's going on this week in the state of
Joe
Connecticut?
moved us right over.
Yeah, I don't want
to. Blanche was 41. I was dying.
You're like, Kristen and Lou are going to go down this weird rabbit hole. Rein it in.
Yeah, let's bring it in. Let's go back to.
So anyway, what's going on in the corner? We have some events coming up. But no, seriously, as usual, I'm loving the fact that Connecticut has a lot of events going on, the last couple of years. And it feels like every week when I'm checking into like what friends of the show are doing, there's always something, which is really, really great. And I know, Joe, you've got a couple that you're going to mention as well.
Yeah, I'll mention at the end. You go first.
Yeah. So we mentioned it once or twice before, but I just want to re-highlight that there is an event this coming Friday on the 27th. Kevnisha of Quality Consulting is a big part of that, and it's called Blossoming Beyond Bars. She's working with Winning Ways Inc. So that's my friend Libby Protzman, and they are doing something. It's exactly what it is. So it's an informational session and a nonprofit entity that's working with women that have formerly been incarcerated, and Blossoming Beyond Bars is the idea. And so it's going to be educational, providing resources. So whether you want to attend, help out, kick your time, talents, treasures over, definitely link up with Kevnisha and see what they need, and if that's something that you would like to be a part of, or someone that would like to be a part of that. But you can go to her Instagram. It's quality counseling rather, sorry, or just look up Kevnisha Boyd. She's got a great website, and all the information is available there, as well as on Winning Ways.
All right, very good.
Yeah, a couple that are further out. So we had her on the show, but Salt and Oil Yoga is continuing to do these Canna yoga sessions. And I love that she's moving locations. So it's not always in one centralized spot. So regardless of where you are in the state, you should be able to find something that's relatively close to home for you. So she just did one yesterday, and she's also got some coming up on October 11th and October 13th. So just go to
Okay.
saltandoilyoga.com. The ticket prices are very reasonable. It's, kind of an all inclusive. So it is beginner level, but even if you're more experienced as a yoga practitioner, she's certainly accommodating, all levels of engagement there. So that's a really great one.
Very cool. All
Another
right.
one that's a little far out, but just one last one to mention, the Connecticut Cannabis Small Business Alliance has a fundraiser coming up. So that's going to be at Illicit Brewery in Manchester on November 3rd. We're going to have
Oh,
some more
okay.
information to come on that one. Myself, Joe, Rebecca Harvey, and Duncan are on the subcommittee for that. So if you have any questions, you can let us know, but that is coming up. So we're definitely looking for a couple of things. One, we need bodies. Buy a ticket. It's going to be a blast. We're going to have entertainment, music. It's a goods and services auction. So it's coming right ahead of the holidays where you can bid on items and get them for below retail value and also raise money for a good cause. We are a nonprofit. We're raising money to be able to kick back out to social equity applicants and folks that are trying to get involved in the industry. So what that looks like would be potentially scholarships, grants, things like that. But we need money before we can implement these initiatives. So we're doing a one big fundraiser. So again, just save the date for Sunday, November 3rd. And we'll have
Put
more
that in your
info on that.
calendar. Yes, I will be
Put that in
there.
your calendar.
Greenhaven Media is part of the Connecticut Small Business Association.
Yep. And
So,
final one, not necessarily cannabis related, but it's always cannabis related when it's advocacy and local politics. Pay attention to who's running for state rep and state senator. Their campaign kickoffs are happening if they have not already. I'll be going to one in my district. So I live in Middletown this Saturday. If you're interested and available, Kai Belton is doing her campaign kickoff at Perk on Main Street in Middletown. Regardless of which side of the aisle you hang out on, find your people and engage in their campaigns. It's a really great way to get some opportunities to speak with them on issues that matter to you and put faces to names. That way, when you're calling their office and you're emailing their office, they know who you are. So that's my
yeah,
bipartisan get out the vote plug.
it's important to pay attention to your local elections. That's really where
100%.
you can get change done. That's where you live. You don't, you know what I mean? And just on that level, there seems to be a little less corruption, and you're able to maybe get to directly to their ear rather than having to go through a bunch of different assistants and stuff. So
Get to know their staffers. I mean,
yeah,
you'll have amazing help if you know who their admin is. I
I
mean,
mean,
hey,
yeah,
girl,
even down to the city council. I mean, these are the people who
100%.
are making the decisions about what goes on in your city.
Yep.
So it's very, very important to be involved in that because this is where you live. There's not a lot we can do about that federal circus going on over there. But on the
We
local
try.
level, it's a little bit less crazy. So
100%.
yeah, definitely do that. All right. So I got a couple of events. Kimura at Kimura's Cultural Corner has a couple things going on this week. This Thursday, she has what is called Save a Life Day, which is actually she's going to be doing a thing where they're giving out free naloxone and education, for drug overdose and you know opiate addicted people. So that's good. It's called Save a Life Day. It's this Thursday from 11 to 8 down at Serling Street. And then she's also got one on the 28th called Get Out the Vote. And this is, a way to, if you're between the ages of 18 and 25, and if you're interested in learning more about voting or registering to vote, it's going to be a great night filled with fun, music, free food, and a chance to make a difference. That's going to be at One Bar and Kitchen. That's this Saturday, the 28th from 6 to 10. So that ought to be interesting. Kimura's sponsoring that. It's called Get Out the Vote, and that is in Hartford at One Bar Kitchen. And then the last one I have here is up there at Sterling House. It is a wellness education series, mushrooms, meditation, and massage. And that is also this Saturday at 3 p.m. over at Wholeness House with Aaron and the crew up there. And as you know, Aaron's written a couple books. They're available on Amazon. You could check them out. I'm sure she'll be promoting them up there. But it's going to be a nice evening of, exactly what it says: mushrooms, meditation, and massage. So, I mean, if that's what you're into, I think that would be a great time. They always do a nice event. If you've not been to Sterling House, it's beautiful. It's like an old mansion. So it's a beautiful place to go. And if you got nothing to do this Saturday, hang out in Hartford, go up to hang out with Aaron and the crew, and then go see Kimura later to get out the vote. So we could have a nice busy weekend this weekend. So, all right. Thank you, Kristen. And let's get right to our guests. So with us now, we have Mr. Chris Verone. And Chris is the editor and co-founder of Talking Joints Memo, a co-founder of the Boston Institute and a co-founder of the Boston Institute for Nonprofit Journalism, and a longtime reporter for outlets including the Boston Phoenix and Dig Boston. He started his career as a music journalist and has been honored to collaborate with the likes of cannabis icons like Cypress Hill and Wu-Tang on book projects. He also plays pickleball and would love more people to play pickleball with him who also smoke weed. So let's put the call out. Anybody who likes to play pickleball and smoke weed, get a hold of Chris. Chris, how are you today?
I'm well. All my interests there are represented behind me, and we actually had our Boston Cannabis Week pickleball tournament on Friday. It went well. I did not win. The team from Green Flash Delivery brought in some ringers. They're like 6'3" and 6'4". But it's okay. It was fun, and we really had a great time. So,
So how was Boston Cannabis Week this week? I mean, I know
great.
there were a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, they really do it. They switched it up. They used to do like a huge kind of culminating party, like it used to be underneath I-93 over at Ink Block in Boston. Common performed one year. This year, it's more, and last year it's more just they're pretty big events, but no big blowout like that. Their big thing was on Saturday. They did a Grateful Dead night at a drive-in that was mid-state, so as to not necessarily compete with the Freedom Rally, which is of course also Saturday. But it was great. I mean, I always enjoy the mixer. It's a good crowd, and you see people. One person I saw wrote a note that said, the industry's been it's been a tough year for a lot of people. So I think those in-person events, especially where not everybody's necessarily tabling or working, sometimes it's just cool. As a reporter, I try to make sure we're off the record. I'm not eavesdropping and stuff, just building with people. And I always say, Boston Cannabis Week, some of the people involved, Lisa Finelli, of course, the founder, and Brandon Matthews, and some other people also come from the music world, from the hip hop world in Boston. So a lot of family for me there. And there's so many people that, could you imagine? There's a lot of crossover. There's so many people from, I covered hip hop for, almost 20 years in greater Boston. So there's so many people too. Yeah. I mean, there's so many people that I almost take it for granted. I think if somebody came over from insurance or something, I don't think they're always. Oh, well, maybe that's a bad example because maybe you do see a lot of people. I'm guessing there's a lot of insurance needs, but I think it's definitely there are all these fiefdoms of the mind, I guess, or just cliques, if you will, not in a bad way. The hip hop crew has always been super inclusive in Massachusetts, and but yeah. So that Boston Cannabis Week was great, though. They had a great fashion event, so they really do it up.
Nice. So, Chris, you've been doing this for a while. You have been a pioneer in cannabis journalism long before it was in vogue, long before it was legal, long before it was even medical. And you, as you say, you started out in the music industry as a music journalist. What made you want to make the transition over into cannabis journalist? Why did you think that would be a new, did you think it would be a new and emerging
Yeah, I mean,
subject, or was it just something you liked?
well, yeah. Well, so my whole shtick, I've been a reporter. I'm 44 years old. Been my whole adult life. I've been a professional reporter, so more than 20 years. And I always say I like the word reporter almost better than journalist because I'm just like reporting what I see. If I'm into
Right.
something, I'm there. When it was music, I wanted to be there, right next to it. With cannabis, well, at first, music really just became investigative reporting and regular journalism to me. All this, I was covering hip hop, and I was in the communities where, if you're just covering music, you're kind of missing the point. I think not that everybody has to cover everything, but the things reflected in the music I was covering and listening to were happening in those communities, Roxbury, Dorchester in particular, where a lot of the artists were from in Boston. And next thing you know, I was covering actually one of my first music stories that wasn't just a music story. It was about how they had this is 20 years ago now. They weren't allowing any hip hop shows in downtown Boston at all. Joe, you probably remember,
Yep.
from promotions and such. So we actually caught back. This is so long ago that the Boston Police Department had faxed this
Faxed.
memo to all of the clubs, and really, obviously, it was a little workaround that they had done. They didn't just go say no hip hop. They'd said, they wouldn't provide a detail, and you needed a detail to say. Oh, but anyway, we had some impact. Next thing you know, I was covering all sorts of things. And cannabis, really, I think, when I got to the Phoenix, that's 2000 Boston Phoenix, rest in peace, in 2008.
Right.
The Phoenix is started in 1966. Goes without saying that the history, High Times is obviously legendary, but even predating High Times, all so-called alternative weeklies, Village Voice in New York, going back to the 50s, of course, we're covering cannabis culture, so-called alternative culture, and so forth. So for me, I remember some of my first was actually, have you ever, Joe, were you ever on the Masscan board or any?
No, but I worked heavily. We used to do their meetings over at the school. So yeah, I
So
was with them all
anybody
the
who
time. I
knows
was from Connecticut, they didn't want me. No, but
anybody
I
who
had
knows the
normal
Mass
down
Camp
here.
board, well, anybody who knows the Mass Camp board knows that there's been, over the years,
Yes.
fireworks, and I cover some of those meetings, and it was pretty interesting. I think it was like 2000, maybe 10 or 11. A group of women in particular have been taking over the board and getting more active, and they would invite me to meetings. But then, there was the annual fight between the city of Boston and over the rally, over the Freedom Rally. So it just became another thing. And then, long story short, I ran Dig Boston into its 25th and final year, which is 2023.
And for
And
those
it's
of you who
set,
don't know, Dig was probably the first cannabis completely themed
yeah.
rag
I
out
mean,
there.
we would do full weed issue, but we covered other stuff too. That was the Dig covered music, entertainment, but had a full cannabis section for years, and way before there was any monetization there. And got to the point where the Dig just wasn't feasible anymore. We've been printing still and all that, and Talking Joints memo, we spun it off. So March 2023, we had never had an all weed site in Massachusetts. My team. And the reason we never did it was because we just assumed that a Leafly or one of the bigs was going to just come in and crush us like a bug, which probably they would have. But long story short, if you go to Talking Joints memo, what you'll see, in addition to all sorts of fun stuff,
go
and
there.
is journalism. We're not pay to play. We really do it. We get down, we cover stuff, we cover the CCC, we cover municipal cannabis issues, and frankly, that's just something that a lot of the bigs are just too lazy to do, and don't really have the wherewithal to do at the local and hyper local level. People ask me all the time, why is it just Massachusetts? We carry a lot of great national coverage too. But it's hard enough to just cover one state. I'm not just in this for the money grab. It's nice to have real advertisers. That's why we have Talking Joints memo instead of the Dig. We're doing pretty well. But really beyond that, it's just so much. Every Monday we start with 8 to 10 new articles, and that's just the beginning of the week. By the end of the week, there's more. So if we were trying to cover everything, I'd certainly love to, do more down in Connecticut, and we will. And certainly we, cover New Hampshire, the craziness up there, Maine a little bit, Vermont, but really Massachusetts. And then we have to cover national. National is critical because this stuff is not happening in a vacuum. For all we know, we're going to wake up one day soon and there'll be a much more open market. But that first section you see, right, when you get on there, and then for products, we do cover some hemp-derived product stuff you can get shipped to you. But mostly, and this is an important point, I always kind of, in the old dig days, I really hated covering cannabis products. It was always like, I had great access, and between, patients who didn't have that access and, or even just your regular consumers, I always thought it was obnoxious. Here's this great strain that I have access to, and I'm writing about it. And what's the point? And then one of the reasons
it's your opinion.
Yeah, it's my, well, that's fine, but opinion is worthless unless people can actually go out and get it. So if you go, if you scroll down, you'll see, half of our site now is reviews, split into two: sips and bites, obviously drinks, edibles, stuff like that. Putting a lot of mushroom stuff, a lot of psilocybin coverage, not the political coverage, but actual product
you got
coverage.
A bunch of you got everything on there though.
Yeah, and then at the bottom, have a lot of strain reviews, and some of those posts will have reviews of 10 different strains. We hear it constantly over and over from readers. We poll our readers. We also hear it from social media, emails. They just want to know what's in the package. They go to a dispensary and there's 50 pre-rolls on the menu and they have cool names, but what the hell is in them? What do they taste like? What's the difference? Which are the companies that are responsible? I mean, it's really interesting. And I'm unless you want to, if we all want to start bad mouthing, that's fine. But there are some companies that, I'm not even that picky, but knowing what I know, I'm not really interested in their products. And I'll have friends who are pretty educated, pretty woke on other matters. They would never shop at Target or something, but then they're walking, then they're walking into Curaleaf, and it's interesting. And listen, a broken clock is right a few times a day, and I think Curaleaf is just, besides being this huge dominant force, is beyond some of the earlier tragic things that we saw from that company. But I just find it interesting that, so anyway, our site, and we can see where people are landing. People are in line, and they're like looking up edibles. They want to know what these edibles are. So
I love this. This is great. And I want all the people who are watching on video to take a look at these prices.
Well, that's
up
just
in Massachusetts.
That's one advertiser. I mean, listen,
but still.
We're coming from a Connecticut frame of mind on looking at these prices, keep in mind, but.
Well, I get it. You're looking at it, those prices is tough either way all the way. What quality you get, where is it coming from, what it is. And
also look at the variety of different products they have. But look, you're right. We can't complain about Connecticut. We are behind Massachusetts. We did legalize 4 years later. So we can't expect us, I hear
about all the dispensaries not paying the growers. The vertically integrated companies are overshadowing everybody else. There's so much going on in the space that there's so much to review, so much to talk about. If
Chris knows it all.
We're at 40. We hit 40 closed we hit 40 shuttered businesses that we know of last month in Massachusetts.
40. Okay, so so it's not all boom and salad days up there. They have their own issues with success, right? And like you said, 40 closures so far.
It always cracks me out. I'm barely a capitalist. I'm not going to sit here and scream socialism all day. I do participate in the economy. I have Talking Joints Memo is a for-profit business, though I do also run a nonprofit journalism operation, the Boston Institute for Nonprofit Journalism. But as for this, it always cracks me up because, it's all these free market crusaders who are so happy about everything until they're going out of business. And I got to say, I used to feel a little, not guilty, but out of place as a reporter criticizing businesses. But honestly, now that I've seen what I've seen, I think any of us together could have just done this better. I see the same business model over and over and over. And no investor would do that in any other industry. If you said, I'm going to put the same restaurant in this town, that there's already 5 restaurants like this, everybody would laugh at you. But everybody thought there was a gold rush. And even till this day, we see very few specialty shops. there's, I think, joint operations has a good amount of joints. People go to Blue River from all over the place for their melts. But I think there's just still, this lack of knowledge by the top down ownership. And we see some of the smaller places that, kind of know how to get in, get their niche, places that are doing rosin only, stuff like that. But hey, it's been interesting to watch who succeeds. You got these places, you have places that are in towns where they were the only show in town for 3 or 4 years. Imagine that. Imagine like being the only liquor store in Cambridge, for 4 years. You just like, putting money under the mattress, but it doesn't last. And is your business prepared to adjust for that?
Yeah, it seems like the cannabis industry is kind of using the liquor store model. They seem to think that, again, all liquor stores are pretty much cookie cutter, right? You walk into any liquor store, it's the same. Right. And it seems like the cannabis industry is going that way because they seem to think that the demand for it is as much for liquor. And while it probably will be at some point, it is not yet.
And the number of stores we have, Joe, is based on the number of liquor stores in a municipality. That's what our actual statute is based on that. So
yeah,
it's directly tied, actually. Yeah.
Wow.
Right. But I think you're saying
Connecticut completely, where Connecticut went a little bit different, where they limited it to the per capita of people. So like in New Haven, where we're broadcasting from, there's only 5 allowed.
And will that do the trick? New Haven's a pretty big place. Is 5 too much, too little, in your opinion?
I think geographic wise, it'll be able to support at least the starting of the business. You know what I mean? Some places, New Haven's a very small town in comparison, and then you have the towns next door that are able to open them up, and we're seeing them pop up right on the main road. Orange put one literally right on our main Boston Post Road, Route 1 that goes from Canada all the way down to Florida, you know what I mean? And the Rise dispensary, I think you guys have Rise in Massachusetts.
We have a Rise. Yeah, we have a couple of Rise, yeah.
So they put their big Connecticut flagship location right there. And then Fine Fettle is located. Boston Post Road's that one road that runs everywhere. So if you're on it, you're kind of in that space. Fine Fettle has a couple on them. And I know Fine Fettle's in Massachusetts as well. They have a grow in Rhode Island, and
they closed their. They had the one of the Martha's Vineyard operations. They closed that one down,
right?
And then and the Fine Fettle they have an outdoor facility in northwestern Mass. I'm a fan of their head grower over there. They definitely have some fire. I know they ran into some issues in Connecticut, but yeah, I mean it's been so wild watching companies. Who don't even, and I'm not, their business is their business. I know they're in some interesting markets and they're pretty tactful about it. But there are some companies that, they never really get their shit together here, and then they're in 7 other states. And I think that's one difference. I not to keep dumping on Curaleaf. I just saw, I think Grant Smith Ellis reported that they're going to have touchscreen basically it's going to turn into like CVS's. There'd be no one to help you, which I don't even know how that is. That is okay by statute. I'm going to have to check into that if that pans.
Connecticut is that way too. You walk into a touchscreen. Yeah. They expect you to order before you go to the counter.
Rec only, though, correct?
For rec, yeah. Medical, you still get, the benefit of speaking to somebody. But yeah, when you walk in, most dispensaries, you got touchscreens. They expect you to order and just go pick it up.
Yeah, and I think this is really, and I'll tell you, one of the not to advertise on your show, one of the side businesses we do, and it's separate from what appears on the site, is we do descriptions. We'll do menu descriptions for companies. It keeps my writers busy, keeps some extra money and weed in their pocket, and frankly, these places need it. I can't imagine owning a multi-million-dollar business, doing all this work, and then putting your product out in the world, and there's literally a generic description of what a sativa strain
you can't
is.
market
Copy
it.
and paste it right from the front.
You literally cannot market it. They do not allow you to market it. It's crazy.
Oh, so in Connecticut, you're not even allowed to have
We can have
No. You are
descriptions.
allowed to have descriptions. You
On
can't
menus,
do any
right?
marketing. Yeah,
Right.
exactly. And you have to keep
Yeah.
it very internalized to your newsletters and your website. So anything with like billboards or advertising, like any other business would be able to do, is very restricted, almost to the point of inability to do so. It's like, show up and buy weed. I mean, that's my perception of Connecticut. Like, we've got weed. That's it.
And we have some, I don't know if anybody's run into issues there with it, and I don't want to mess it. In Massachusetts, we have restrictions, obviously. They're not that tight, but some of people have run into some problems because of the ads on their own site that are populating in other places. So that, it's really, and then again, there's a company that advertises with us that I also saw. They're now advertising on not like on-demand television. So if you get commercials
on
on
like
your Hulu,
Roku and stuff like
yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah. So
See, there's
actual
ways
commercials.
around it that people need to learn, because many other states are even more restrictive than Connecticut. But if again, I've seen a couple of the dispensaries that are close to the highway. All they do is they put their sign on top of the roof,
Right.
and then it looks like a billboard, but it's not. No, it's just my sign. One is INSA that
I
we
love a
have
good
here.
gray area, you know?
Yeah. And again,
I mean-
it's digital marketing. They don't really, since the state doesn't know enough about it, you can get away with it.
One
Oh,
thing
we're
about it,
following
I know
it, Joe.
Connecticut is so on this path. Connecticut. Oh, I'm sorry. Go on.
No. I was saying, saying be quiet before they close the loophole.
Connecticut. Oh yeah, Connecticut back in the day. From what I recall, didn't you have to grind up? Wasn't all the weed ground up?
Yeah, and the medical program was all homogenized.
And I think I actually use that as an example in that. I think it's interesting, even when we get medical, even when recreational passes, even when we have dispensaries on every other corner, it's still, the presumption is bad, right? Everything is bad. It's all negative. It's all bad. It must be crushed up. We can't see it. We can't know about it. Our kids can't see billboards, and it's just insane. We all, I don't always like to default to the alcohol analogy, because I feel that everybody would put that genie back in the bottle if they could. That problem back in the box, that Pandora back in the box. No, alcohol is, and I'll tell you, every time I eat mushrooms, it's like, wow, don't invest in lick alcohol. That they're done. They're very
and they're worried about that, because cannabis drinks are starting to, replace beer and stuff in the market.
Now, where did Connecticut end up?
Oh boy,
I kind of followed, but you had gotten to the point even past Massachusetts where you had them in your major liquor stores.
Yes,
we only have them in our regular liquor stores. The big places never jumped here, but now it's all over for you guys.
All over. What happened was the liquor industry got involved, and they actually talked the legislator into giving them a piece of the action and being exclusive for the hemp derived THC beverages now. So now all liquor stores can sell them. And if you're a CBD store and you're a head shop or somebody else who wants to sell them, now you have to buy a special license to do that.
Oh, but you do have them. See, we basically just act them all together. They threatened everybody.
Oh no, they have them. They wanted a piece of that market, believe me. And what they did. Yeah, go ahead. You know the law better. I was going to say,
we just have an interesting dynamic in that, like, dispensaries can sell them, but some folks I've talked to, just for shelf space and how much they are sold, it really doesn't make a ton of sense for them to keep a big variety of inventory, whereas a liquor store can pull in smaller amounts. So like the wine shop I go to around the corner, I just went and got a bottle of wine a couple days ago, and like they have a huge supply of Cantrip. Which, I mean, I love that. You know what I mean? Like, I like the guy. I've met him, but it's interesting to just see it. So yeah, it's primarily our liquor stores that carry it. Dispensaries can, and then we do have a separate licensing structure, like Joe was saying, for like head shops or CBD stores. But it's, in my opinion, prohibitive in that, like, I previously owned a CBD store. I would have never applied for that license because I don't think I had the foot traffic to justify carrying it personally. So it's
Right.
interesting. We've made it an option, but I think every store is very much going to have to take an honest look at where their revenue is coming from. Because to jump on that license and pay, I think it's $1,000 a year, which isn't
500.
Is it five? Okay, so it's
Which
not
is still a lot.
terrible, but it's not. You know,
It's a lot. You have to justify at least selling 1,000 products with that 50 cent, price point attached to it. And a
Yeah.
1,000 products is a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot. They're not going to be super cheap. They're going to, and if you're
No, they're
not
not
making,
cheap. They're almost $20 a six pack. You're paying $5 a can.
For four of
Yeah.
them, I think it's $20 for four.
Yeah.
And it's only it's 20 milligrams. And, it's kind of interesting. That's basically the model that Adam from Cantrip and others were pushing for everywhere,
Yeah.
and I agree with, there's obviously not research to show it, but it only makes sense. And certainly you've heard it anecdotally that those products will drive people ultimately to dispensaries where hopefully they will be able to get something more than 5 milligrams. What is the milligram? What's the cap for a beverage?
3 milligrams per serving. I think it's 4 servings per can for the hemp-derived THC that you could sell in liquor stores. Dispensary, which would be the cannabis, big difference.
Yeah.
Derived THC, they're allowing 5 milligrams per serving for dispensaries.
So it's not going to do anything. Let's just all be really honest about that.
Yeah. And also,
Yeah.
Gotta get a sugar high first.
Well, also, not some of the better brands, unless it's in a glass bottle, even the best regular cans, we've seen in tests that that THC goes away when you're starting with only 5 milligrams. But listen, for a lot of people, it does the trick. For me, it doesn't. But I think that's something that's something that's going to have to change in regs everywhere, because of course, then you have it's just not fair to the companies with their bottling lines set up and everything, because then you have tincture companies just come in and eat their lunch. We actually, in Massachusetts, it turns out that tinctures can go up to 5,000 milligrams on the adult use side. Doesn't even have to be medical. The highest one that I know of is Good Feels has one called Good Vibes that is 1,000, and it's a long story, but the short version is that Jason Raposa from that company actually questioned the Cannabis Control Commission. They had a typo in a memo that said the limit was 500, but it's actually 5,000. So we haven't seen that yet. But yeah, I mean, I think you're seeing tinctures go up, a lot more tinctures, drink mixes, stuff like that. And that's because the 5 milligrams is just little. And I'm sure you have a similar situation with the storage situation, as you just kind of mentioned in Connecticut, where these things have to go inside the cage or the vault.
Yes.
And, you get cases and cases and cases, especially urban stores just don't have the room. So, it's better for liquor stores.
It is, because they have the storage space, they have the shelf space. It's something that somebody may go in there and pick up, say, a bottle of tequila and grab a couple of weed 6-packs, weed drinks on the way out, because they don't want to be bloated the next day from beer or whatever. But
that's that's also good, because that's also kind of warming your state up for. Listen, I don't think, and I know that certainly owners of venues don't like the idea of alcohol and cannabis. At the same time, I think it's got to be inevitable that it's in some way, whether it's even just concerts, they're going to have to be in the same place.
Yeah.
So I've seen, so when social consumption becomes more and more of a discussion in all of our states, as is happening right now, I think it'd be nice to point to something where because I think just wanting them to never be next to each other is just not realistic, and it's not going to work. Something like a movie theater. Why shouldn't a movie theater have a
concert?
Or a concert, right?
I will say, here in Connecticut, we have the amphitheater, which is half indoor, half outdoor. You can buy liquor inside, and you can smoke weed out on the patio.
Oh, really? Like officially?
Yes. And they are now trying actually to get a dispensary. They're going through a lot of legal stuff opened up inside the amphitheater. So right next to Frank Pepe's Pizza, you will have, I think it's Butter is the one who's trying to do it. You would have a dispensary in the amphitheater. Wow. Now that's big.
Is that the one next to the ferry?
What's that?
Is that the one next to the ferry?
Yes. Yeah, that's the one that's beautiful near the water out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a beautiful venue. We just had a cannabis event over there. They're cannabis friendly too. Sweet. And I was checking out, the actual amphitheater, and it's a beautiful venue, and you can smoke cannabis out on the outer patio. And if they do put in this dispensary, you will have that liquor and the cannabis in the same space. So
You know,
that'll
what
be
the-
interesting.
What's
Yeah,
the
let me
action
see.
looking? Sorry, go
Go
ahead,
ahead.
Kristen.
No, you go.
I was just curious. 'Cause I'm always turning a reporter. I went to high school in Northwestern Connecticut. What is the scene what's it looking like in places that are really pretty remote? More, I hesitate to use the word rural, but places, like that, mid-state,
Um,
in the Northwestern corner, stuff like
Most of
that.
them have a moratorium on dispensaries.
Okay.
The ones that are smart will put one in. Like I know there's one way up in Winstead, you know what I mean, where you wouldn't think, but it's that's the only game in town, so they're doing all right. But yeah, but luckily we have delivery here, so a lot of them are going to have to use the delivery service. But yeah, rural areas are quite underserved, and a lot of it's the community's fault because they put moratoriums on them, because cannabis is so bad. Even though they'll get 2% of the revenue, they could really
Yes.
use that for their
And we've
town.
had, I'll tell you, I don't know, you're on terrestrial radio, so for anybody listening out there, you're a little municipal tyrant. I promise you're going to be coming begging in a couple of years. I live in a no town in Massachusetts that is only half a no town now because like 2 years ago they decided to. I don't want to say publicly where I live, but they basically took away some. So now we can have cultivation and manufacturing, still no retail, but nobody's coming here, right? It's
Right.
people are going out of business. If somebody wants a cultivation, they go buy one that somebody doesn't want anymore. So there is a such thing as too late.
Yeah.
Too early. There's also a thing as too early in cannabis, as a lot of us know.
Yes, because a
In
lot of
fact,
the
Joe,
early people are out now.
Joe, I know you, of course, from
The
the
school.
school, which was Northeastern Institute of Cannabis, which is still, I still see people who work there. It did the job.
It did
but
what it was supposed to
it
do.
was early, So I think right now there'd be a huge,
Oh,
huge demand for that. Although we
huge.
of course we see, I don't know how much of a tangent you want on this, but one big disappointment for me, and this is from small shops to large ones, is not just the treatment of bud tenders and associates, but really just I just don't think that. I know it's almost cliche to say, but people are not realizing how important the front line is. Some
Yeah.
companies do great parties because they realize these are the people pushing their products if they're pushing them. But in general, I stopped going to a dispensary near me in Massachusetts because I asked. So one day I walked in. I'm a melt guy. I like my concentrates, and anybody who knows concentrates knows that it could say butter, but it might be a wax. Could say wax, but it's really just the drippiest, grossest thing. So I like to ask, and somebody told me, they said, this young woman told me they're stealing our samples. We're not getting our samples. I said, why does anybody here know anything anymore? What the hell is going on? They said, we're not getting the samples. So the owner is taking the samples, I guess, selling them or using them. I don't know, but I just think this is so 101, Chris, and I could tell you're like chomping. Let's hear. I mean, this is
No, I'm like, this is interesting. And you know this information because you're asking the questions and you're doing the reporting, but the average person does not know this. And so you'll hear people waxing poetic on the internet. Man, the bud tenders don't know anything. And to your point, people really bash bud tenders for no good reason, in my opinion, because exactly what you're pointing out, you don't know that until you know that. How would they know the products if they're not being permitted to sample them?
It's a ton of stuff too on a lot of these menus, and that we just know, like Cara who had an event there was an event last year for bud tenders.
Cara Crab Burnham.
There's some interest, but not as much as there should be because these places. And then we all know, of course, I think Cara does it too, and of course, Dr. Keith Saunders does the trainings, right? So for bud tenders and some of the mandatory trainings in Massachusetts, I'm sure you have similar ones in Connecticut, and it's just disappointing. And I understand, money's always money, but there's cheaper trainings now, right? It's like everything else. You get the McDonald's
Oaksterdam is coming, and
it's all virtual. It's barely a training at all, and I just think that's really unfortunate. And listen, it's really kind of interesting because I'm sure you all talk to people who don't host shows about weed and who don't write about it,
report on it, right?
And like I said before about people just walking in and Curaleaf, a lot of people out there, they're going to get, unless they have a really bad experience, they're going to keep going to that store. Right. And are they going to keep people and people have these very subjective experiences with legal cannabis. Understandably, I hear them all the time, and I'll say to someone, "Why don't you just go to this other place? They got, somebody say like I gave somebody a dab rig, right? A really nice one, a friend. He said, well, but he lives in the city. A lot of the urban places do not have a lot of concentrates. They're getting more and more now. Anyway, he said, he goes, he goes, nobody has these. I said, you got to go, go to this store, go to this store. But really, it's everything. There's a lot of silos. To us, that may be kind of like one large industry, but a lot of people. And another example of this down in New York, when they survey people, I mean, at one point now there are more, but I think in Manhattan there were like 2,000 illegal dispensaries, and 8 licensed ones. And when you ask people how many licensed dispensaries were, they're like, I don't know, 1,000.
Exactly.
Because they think those little bodegas are licensed.
They did, And by the way, I got to, not to bring up, I'm from New York originally. I don't see how they recover from that ever. I mean,
how do you stop it?
Years.
You don't stop.
I went into about 40 on one day once. I walked the whole city. I had all this time, smoked like more joints than that, and I mean, you see the same, because it's like a lot of the same. You see, and some of them work, and a lot of it's D9, but the same edibles, right? $35 in one place, $10 in the next place. Just no
regulation or price, right?
That's some fun market research,
and it's tough because I'm from New York as well, man. And I walked right through and some of my favorite restaurants, and the false walls, the back doors. It's just as sketchy as it was back in the day when I was 16 years old buying weed from the Rastas in Brooklyn. You'd have to go to the back room and pick up your weed from the back room. Now it's kind of the same thing through a false wall, where if you were buying like a fake Chanel bag or something like that, none of this stuff is old news. Like, it's been being done for ages, but it's the same Cali weed. And the tough part is a lot of this stuff is backdoored out of wherever it is, which means it wasn't fit for consumption in their own state, and they got moved over. D8, D9 sprayed. It'd be a lot different to me if it was some actual fire that was like, oh, this is the fire with some homegrown and it's actually worth what it is. But I think they spend more money on the bags or boxes that they're put in the packaging they're putting in it now than the actual product that's in it.
I think there's a good, I was talking to a friend who, we used to have a little delivery business and work for someone else way back in the day in New York City, which was obviously good money. I was thinking, with all the garbage out there, I think somebody could have a good 1-2 person business, do, $250,000 a year with absolute fire, $70 eighths, in nice jars, have a cool backpack, but the same thing, by the way, I can't help but say is, this is where we are with psychedelics now. There's so much talk about. We had a place called Divine Wellness, DEVINE, in South Boston, raided by the DEA the other day. They're selling a lot of, products that have everything but psilocybin, but then they end up having psilocybin sometimes.
Right, because of the way that the mushrooms interact with each other, it creates psilocybin in your system or whatever, right?
Yeah, psilocin. Yeah, so I'm learning a lot about this, but a lot of the interest is driving, all this is happening. Even if we have, by the way, for those who don't know, we have a legalization initiative, so a ballot initiative. When we go to the ballot in Massachusetts in November, we'll be voting on psychedelics. It's our question 4. Now, that's not going to set up a retail market, though. That'll be for therapeutic purposes.
Medicinal, yeah.
Much more, just more like akin to medical cannabis. Now, with that said, that doesn't, everybody, right now is the time where, between yuppies microdosing, other people remembering how much they loved mushrooms in college, veterans and other people with PTSD finally turning there, we're 10 years behind any formidable retail or even medical market being able to supply that demand, to meet that demand. So we basically have 5 years of the Wild West with psychedelics ahead of us right now, which is really interesting. And of course, we could blame no one but the war on drugs for the fact that we're all so freaking far behind. But, that New York, everything going on in New York with those, I think that even in places like Massachusetts that managed to get Oh, we have, you get your D8 gummies at the gas station every now and then, but this was never Florida. We don't have even what Connecticut has in the Delta 9 realm. But with psychedelics, I think it's just going to be everywhere. We're already seeing
I
it.
agree.
There's a lot of money in it. And a lot of this stuff, I wouldn't say it really gets you that wasted, but some of the stuff is legal. So there, you have a lot of these alternative wellness spots popping up. But
Yeah.
that's where it is.
All right, Chris, we are out of time. I want you
Wow.
to give you a minute to give out your social media, your website,
Yeah.
everything. How can they get a hold of you? And if you want to send a story to Chris, I'm sure he'd be open to reading it.
Yeah, we're
About
here
your
and,
local market.
absolutely. So talkingjointsmemo.com, that's basically where it happens. And, our newsletter, I really recommend. We do not spam you. You get one, maybe sometimes two a week if
That's
there's
what
some
I
really
get.
big news, but one a week. And that just rounds up. About 70% of it is Massachusetts, but then really also the national stories. We do neighbor stories. There'll be a Connecticut story in there at least once a month. And, so talkingjointsmemo.com. From there, social media for me with cannabis. Listen, we have it. We have the presence there. I just don't bank on it. We are about our own property. We want people on the site reading actual articles and signing up for our newsletter. And
Excellent. And that's how you can support local, somebody who's out there doing it, who's not a dispensary. Again, I always say you don't have to be a dispensary or cultivator to be in the cannabis industry. And this is just like what we do here on the radio. This is another way to get the word out and to make a living in this industry. And they're telling me I got to go. All right, Chris. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Krista. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Lou, Uncle Lou, any last words? No. All right. Take care.
Listen, this is a really Oscar ending song, so have a great day.
There you go. Have a great one, guys.
Chris.
Have a great one. Follow us at Greenhaven Media. Follow me at Joe the Weed Guy. Check out our YouTube page. And we will see you next week.